All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something pretty fascinating, electrolyzed reduced water, or ERW.
Yeah, ERW.
Most people just think, well, water is water, right?
Right.
But we've got some pretty interesting research here that suggests that ERW might be something a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to be looking at a scientific paper that kind of breaks down a bunch of studies and observations on ERW. And then we've also got this other document that explores the concept of structured water, which we'll get to later.
Exactly. So we're going to try to break down all the key findings of all the research, really understand what ERW is, how it's different from regular water, and, most importantly, what it all means for you.
Okay, so first things first, what exactly is ERW?
So ERW is created through this process called electrolysis, and you can kind of think about it like splitting water into two parts. So you've got the alkaline fraction and the acidic fraction, and the alkaline portion is what we call ERW.
Okay, so is it oversimplifying things to kind of think about it like separating water into good and bad parts?
Yeah, it's a little more nuanced than that. What makes ERW unique is this combination of factors. It
Uh-huh.
has a negative ORP, which stands for oxidative reductive potential.
Okay.
Basically, think of it like a scale of how easily a substance can give or receive electrons.
Right.
So a negative ORP means it's chock full of electrons that are ready to neutralize those damaging free radicals that we always hear about.
So it's like ERW is armed and ready to fight off those free radicals. I
Right.
like that. So what else makes ERW unique? Besides that, what sets it apart from regular water?
So alongside the negative ORP, it also has an alkaline pH, smaller molecular clusters, and lower surface tension.
Okay, smaller molecular clusters. That's interesting. Does that have any impact on how our bodies absorb it?
Yeah, that lower surface tension that you mentioned could mean better hydration for sure, but the real star of the show is that negative ORP.
Right.
It gives ERW that powerful antioxidant potential. And there are studies that suggest it can scavenge those free radicals that contribute to aging and all sorts of diseases.
Okay, so it's really good at that, but are there any downsides to that? Like with that powerful antioxidant activity, are there any long-term downsides? And does the research show any benefits besides just like fighting free radicals?
That's a great question. And it's important to remember that research is always ongoing with things like this, so we're always learning new things.
For sure.
But as for the concrete benefits, one study actually found that rats who were drinking ERW for just 1 week had reduced markers of oxidative stress in their urine.
1 week. Wow, that's pretty amazing. But what about us humans? Like, does this actually translate to like real-world health benefits?
This is where it gets really interesting. So they did some studies on nematodes, which are these tiny worms and mice, and they actually found that ERW extended their lifespans.
Wow. So what you're saying is the antioxidant power of ERW might actually be able to slow down aging at like a cellular level. Wow. So it's like a potential pathway to healthier aging for us humans as well.
Right. And the potential benefits don't stop there.
Okay.
Researchers have been looking at how ERW might actually impact specific health conditions.
So I guess people are probably wondering, how does all this translate to benefits for me? So let's look at some specific conditions. What about diabetes? Like, what does the research say about ERW and diabetes?
Yeah, so there have been some really promising results, especially in animal models. They found that ERW can improve blood sugar control in diabetic mice and rats.
Interesting.
And there's even a human study with type 2 diabetics where 45% of the participants saw improvements in their blood glucose, their cholesterol levels, and a bunch of other important markers just from drinking ERW.
Wow, so this isn't just theoretical. Like, there's actually evidence that it could really help people who are dealing with diabetes.
Exactly.
That's great. So how does it actually work?
Okay, so there are several potential mechanisms at play. First of all, ERW is really good at scavenging those reactive oxygen species, or ROS, which are basically just harmful free radicals. Now, I know we're getting a little sciencey here,
Yeah.
but the takeaway is that these ROS contribute to cellular damage,
Okay.
and ERW can neutralize them.
Gotcha. So it's fighting off those harmful molecules.
Yeah.
What else is going on?
So ERW may also improve insulin signaling and enhance cell hydration.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those are really critical for managing diabetes. One theory is that because of those smaller molecular clusters in ERW, it's able to penetrate cells more effectively.
Yeah.
And that leads to better hydration and nutrient delivery.
It seems like it's tackling diabetes from a bunch of different angles.
Yes.
That's amazing. So what about other conditions? Does the research show potential benefits for anything else?
Well, another area where ERW shows a lot of promise is kidney disease. So they did a study on dialysis patients who, as you know, have a really high risk of cardiovascular complications. And they found that when these patients drank ERW, they had a significant reduction in markers of oxidative stress and inflammation.
That's huge. Reducing those risks for those patients is a really big deal.
Absolutely. Now, for something that might surprise you, cancer.
Oh, wow.
Research has actually shown that ERW inhibited tumor cell growth in multiple studies. But here's the key. It didn't harm normal cells.
So it targets the bad guys
Yeah.
without hurting the good guys.
Exactly.
Incredible. What about protection for other organs? Anything there?
There have also been studies that suggest that ERW protects the liver from damage, similar to the effects of milk thistle extract, which is a popular liver protective supplement.
Wow. So it's showing some amazing things at the organ level, but I think what's even more fascinating is what we see happening at, like, the microscopic level when we look at live blood. Have you ever heard of live blood analysis?
Yeah, so that involves observing a live blood sample under a microscope.
Okay.
And the differences they see before and after someone drinks ERW for, like a significant amount of time are pretty striking.
Oh, really? What do they see?
Okay, so imagine the before picture, right? You see all these blood cells, but they're sticky. They're all clumped together.
Okay.
This is a sign of inflammation and potential circulation issues. And it's something that we often see as we age, and it's part of why we feel sluggish sometimes.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. So what happens after introducing ERW?
Well, after 6 months of drinking ERW, they look at that same blood sample again, and they see these beautiful, free-flowing, healthy blood cells.
Wow.
And it's such a powerful visual, it really highlights those positive changes that are happening at a microscopic level.
It's like free-flowing, healthy blood.
Right.
It sounds like ERW is doing more than just fighting free radicals. It's like improving the very foundation of our health. But let's shift gears for a second and talk about structured water, because this concept is kind of tied into our ERW discussion and adds another layer to this whole idea of how water can impact our health. So structured water, sometimes called hexagonal water or EZ water, has this unique arrangement of molecules, almost like a perfectly ordered hexagonal structure.
Right.
So instead of being all jumbled up and random, the water molecules are arranged beautifully in this structured form of water. Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly. It's thought to be more energized and even capable of storing information.
Wow.
And the idea is that this structured water is really important in living organisms, It contributes to them functioning at their best.
Okay, so are we talking about like a completely different type of water?
It's more about water existing in different states. You can
Right.
kind of think of it as water in its most organized and vital form.
That's pretty cool. So this leads to a bunch of questions like, how do we get more of this structured water? Is it something we can just buy in a bottle, or do we have to make it ourselves? And how does it all tie back to this ERW we were just talking about?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we'll be getting into next. We're going to uncover the science behind structured water, how it connects to ERW, and most importantly, we'll give you some practical ways that you can potentially increase the amount of structured water in your own life.
All right, so stay tuned, everyone. Part 2 of our deep dive is coming up right after this. Okay, welcome back. We're continuing our exploration of ERW and the mysteries of structured water.
Yeah, it really makes you think differently about water, huh?
It does.
Yeah.
Really does.
Yeah.
You mentioned we'd be digging deeper into the research on structured water, so where do we even start with that?
Well, let's start with this fascinating concept called exclusion zone water, or EZ water for short.
EZ water.
Yeah, EZ water. And this term was actually coined by a researcher named Dr. Gerald Pollack, and he's kind of like one of the leading guys in this field.
Okay, EZ water. I like it. What makes it different from regular water?
So what Dr. Pollack found was that when water is next to what's called a hydrophilic surface, which is basically just a surface that water's attracted to, a layer of water forms that's more structured and organized than the surrounding water.
Interesting. So the presence of these surfaces actually changes the water structure.
Exactly. And this easy water, as it's called, has some pretty remarkable properties. Like it excludes solutes, so other substances in the water get pushed out of this zone.
Okay.
And it also becomes negatively charged,
Huh?
which creates a separation of charges that actually acts like a battery.
Wait, hold on. Water forming a battery. This is getting crazy. What are the implications of that? Like, what does that even mean?
Well, it suggests that structured water might be playing a much more active role in biological processes than we ever thought.
Wow.
Think about it. What could this mean for cell function, energy production, even the way our bodies use nutrients. It's pretty amazing.
So it's like water is going from being this like passive background player to like a leading role in how life works.
That's a great way to put it. And it gets even more mind-blowing.
Okay.
So this charge separation that we see in easy water is very similar to what happens in the first step of photosynthesis.
Wow.
Where light energy gets converted into chemical energy in plants.
You mean like water itself might be harnessing energy from light like plants do?
That's what Dr. Pollack's research suggests, yeah.
Wow.
This structured water could be fundamental to how all living organisms capture and use energy. It really changes how we think about biophysics.
It's definitely changing how I think about things. Okay, so we know this easy water forms near these hydrophilic surfaces, but our bodies are mostly water. So where does all this easy water come from inside us?
That's a great question. And one theory is that our cells, with all their intricate membranes and protein structures, actually provide the perfect environment for easy water to form.
Oh, okay, so each of our cells is like generating its own little supply of easy water.
That's the idea. And there's another piece to this puzzle. Dr. Pollack found that infrared light, the kind we feel as heat, actually increases the formation of easy water.
So getting some sun or sitting in a sauna could be doing more than just relaxing us. Like it might actually be boosting our easy water levels.
It's all connected in these amazing ways. And speaking of connections, let's bring it back to ERW. How does ERW fit into all of this?
Yeah, let's tie it all together. I'm ready to see how ERW and structured water relate.
Remember those key characteristics of ERW that we talked about? The smaller molecular clusters, the lower surface tension? Well, these properties suggest that ERW probably has a higher degree of structure than regular water.
So is it fair to say that drinking ERW could be like giving our bodies a direct boost of structured water?
You could definitely think of it that way. And when you think about all those potential benefits we discussed earlier, the antioxidant effects, the improvements in blood sugar control, the protection against cell damage, it really makes you wonder if a lot of those benefits might actually be linked to increased levels of structured water in the body.
It's all starting to make sense. But you know, if structured water is so important for our health, why aren't we hearing more about it? Why isn't everyone talking about this?
Well, structured water research is still a fairly new field, and to be honest, it challenges a lot of the old ways of thinking in the scientific community.
Yeah.
So not everyone is on board with, such a big change in how we see things.
It's kind of like, when people thought the earth was flat,
Yeah.
there was resistance to new ideas. But eventually there's just too much evidence, and you
Yeah.
can't ignore it anymore.
Exactly. And with structured water, that evidence is building. More and more researchers are studying it.
That's exciting. It's like we're watching this revolution in our understanding of water. But I'm curious, how do we even know if the water we're drinking is structured? Can we, test it somehow?
Well, there are ways to test it, but it's not as easy as, say, testing the pH of water.
Right.
Some researchers use techniques like nuclear magnetic resonance or infrared spectroscopy to analyze water structure, but those require, some pretty fancy equipment.
Okay, so not something we can easily do at home.
Yeah.
So are there any, clues we can look for, anything that might tell us if our water is structured?
Well, there are some visual things you can look for. For example, structured water tends to form these really beautiful, intricate patterns when it freezes.
Really?
Yeah, similar to those famous water crystals that were photographed by Dr. Emoto.
So if my ice cubes are looking extra pretty, that might be a good sign.
It could be. It's not, a foolproof test or anything, but at the end of the day, the best indicator is probably just how you feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. Pay attention to our bodies
Yeah.
and how we feel when we're drinking different types of water. It's like
Yeah.
we can be our own little scientists.
Exactly. Pay attention to your energy levels, your hydration, your overall sense of well-being. Your body might be trying to tell you something.
That's so interesting. This whole conversation has really made me want to pay more attention to the water I drink. But before we wrap things up here, what's coming up next? What else can we learn about putting all this knowledge into practice?
In our final segment, we're going to get practical and talk about some simple ways you can actually increase the structure of the water you drink every day. We'll dig into those techniques we talked about before, like vortexing, using sunlight, even crystals, and we'll explore why those things might actually work.
Ooh, okay. Sounds good.
Meh.
Stay tuned, everyone. Part 3 of our deep dive is coming up next, where we unlock the secrets to making structured water. Welcome back, everyone. We've gone through all this amazing science about ERW and structured water.
Yeah, lots of fascinating stuff.
Now I'm ready to learn how to use it. So how could we actually increase the structure of the water that we're drinking every day?
So one of the simplest and most effective methods is something called vortexing.
Vortexing.
Vortexing, yeah. It's all about movement.
Okay.
Water in nature is constantly swirling and spiraling and moving, right?
Right.
And that motion actually contributes to its structure.
You're right. We talked about those beautiful swirling patterns in rivers and oceans.
Exactly.
So how do we recreate that energy at home?
You could get a fancy vortexing device,
Okay.
or you can just use a spoon or a whisk
Oh, okay.
and stir your water in a circular motion, for about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Create a nice strong vortex just to energize the water.
So that swirling motion kind of creates an energetic shift in the water and bumps up the structure.
That's the idea.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So simple. What about sunlight? Didn't we talk about that earlier too?
Yeah, sunlight is a natural structure of water.
Right.
Think about, those pristine mountain springs or glacial streams.
Yeah.
They're constantly being exposed to sunlight, and that plays a big role in their structure.
So if I just leave a glass of water out in the sun, that will help.
Absolutely. Even like 15, 20 minutes of direct sunlight can make a difference.
Oh, okay.
And you can boost that sunlight exposure even more by keeping your water in a clear glass container.
I like that. A nice picture of sun-infused water on the counter. Okay, now what about the crystals? How do they work?
Crystals are thought to have this unique vibrational energy,
Okay.
and that can actually influence the structure of water.
Really?
Quartz, especially, is known for its ability to amplify and harmonize energy.
So they're basically transferring their good vibes to the water.
That's the idea.
Wow, okay.
So you can try putting a cleansed quartz crystal in your water bottle or pitcher. Just make sure you pick a crystal that's safe for water and, clean it regularly.
Crystal-infused water. That's wild. What other techniques are there?
Another interesting one is using magnets.
Magnets.
Yeah. So placing magnets around your water container creates this magnetic field.
Okay.
And some people believe that can influence the water structure.
Interesting. Water magnets. I've never heard of that.
It's pretty cool.
Okay, so there are all these different ways to do this, but has any of this actually been proven by science?
Research on these specific techniques is still kind of limited, but the principles behind them, they line up with what we know about structured water.
Okay.
Remember, water is super dynamic and it responds to its environment.
Right.
Even those subtle energies and vibrations can affect it.
So even if we don't have all the answers yet, it's worth trying.
Exactly.
Like we're rediscovering all this ancient wisdom about water.
I love that. It's like we're moving past just, the basic scientific view of water and realizing how complex and amazing it really is.
I agree. This whole deep dive has totally changed how I think about water.
Me too.
It's not just for, thirst. It could be the key to a healthier life.
It really could. And I really encourage everyone listening to keep learning and exploring all the amazing things about water.
Every sip we take, it's like this opportunity to connect with this incredible life-giving element.
I like that.
So let's all raise a glass to structured water and to curiosity and to always learning more. Until next time, everyone, stay hydrated and keep those deep dives flowing.